Hello and welcome back to Talk with Coach. I'm your host, Becca Goldsberry, elite sales and leadership coach with Southwestern Consulting. This podcast is all about learning from the best in the business, those who have walked the walk and are ready to share their journeys, lessons, and hard-earned wisdom. We're about to discover some invaluable tips that can transform your business or leadership journey. So buckle up and get ready for another episode of Talk with Coach. Today, I am excited because my guest is Regina Sloan, and we had the pleasure of connecting through networking with Queen City Women in Business, and I can't wait for her to share her expertise with you guys. Regina is a dual certified life coach and a nurse of 11 years of healthcare experience who has overcome challenges like teen motherhood and personal trauma. She uses her resilience and deep understanding of human behavior to empower women to believe in themselves, embrace new opportunities, and unlock their full potential. Outside of coaching, Regina enjoys camping, hiking, reading, and a love for all things personal development. Regina, welcome to Talk with Coach.
Hey, Becca, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So how did we go from being a nurse and in healthcare? What's the journey of you being in that realm all the way to doing life coaching?
Yeah, so funny enough, I never really had a moment where I decided I was going to be a nurse. My grandmother, who I spent a lot of time with when I was younger, she just was like, "You were so helpful. You're definitely going to be a nurse." And like just really conditioned me. So it was really interesting when I got in high school and they start talking about like what careers you want to go into. I just always thought nurse. So I chose nurse, just was kind of chosen for me. And how I transitioned to coaching, I have done leadership in many different ways in nursing, and I'm still active. But in that time that I have spent in nursing, half of that was with mostly those who have terminal illnesses. So they came to our floor to like die comfortably, and I was helping their families and all of that. And I was a charge nurse on that floor for several years. And then the other half was the ICU, which is the other spectrum of the same kinds of things happening, just in different experiences. So within that, I've always dealt with really difficult situations, difficult people in their emotions, and just in times that you're taking care of people in their lowest times usually. And what I found was that I was always intrigued with what people were thinking, how they were feeling. I would do medicine, right? As a nurse, we give medicine and meds and all of that, but I was much more interested in like the person and individual and what got them to where they were. And so I think I've always been inclined for personal development. In nursing, what I found in coaching is like those skills literally transferred over perfectly. And the analytical skills, multitasking, all of those things. But I found coaching from a podcast. And I was like, what is this? I became a client myself. It really helped me transform my life in many different areas. And then, of course, I was so intrigued by it that I started to offer it to friends. Anyone who would let me under the table was free, like anyone. It was fun. And then I decided, I think maybe in 22 or so, that I didn't want to retire as a nurse. And so I started to look different ways that I wanted to change careers and do something different. And coaching was available to me. So I got into that, and it's been on ever since.
I love that. And I love the fact that you did coaching yourself.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of coaches, a lot of different coaches from different type of coaching background and different, from life coaching to business coaching. There's a lot of coaches out there who have not done coaching themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm like, why? Like, I'm like, if you're going to be a coach, I think they need to be coached as well. So I love that, you did coaching and you kind of found a passion for it, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I mean, and I have several coaches now. I'm actually leaving next week for California for a retreat with one of my coaches. I mean, so I'm definitely a product of my products, and not by way of anything other than like, it's just so fun. It helps to push me to my limits, and it really helps me to show up better for them. I emailed my clients yesterday. I'm like, hey, I'm taking this week off. I'll be gone, but I cannot wait to come back and share what I learned and us to level up. So yeah, it's my thing.
Right. Absolutely. I love that whole concept of being a student of your game. So
yes.
So important, because we always have to be constantly learning and growing and improving. I don't care what your job is. And if you're not, you're just going to stay stuck.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I know you know that too with a lot of the leaders that you are
Yeah.
coaching too. I don't know if you experience. I feel like sometimes my leaders that I have, I think there's just a conception in society, right? They should have it together. They don't need coaching. So I don't know if you experienced that, but
I experience it a lot. So there's a couple buckets I typically find leaders in. Some leaders are like, yes, I have not had a career where I have not had a coach. So yes, I need it's time to have a coach again, right? There's those leaders who have always had a coach because that's how they've grown, improved, and ranked, got to where they are. Then
mhm.
there are people who are not opposed to coaching, just never done it, and kind of nervous about what is coaching and what does this look like. And then there's another bucket where the people are just like, I got this. And I'm thinking, oh, don't do that to yourself, right? Like, no, like be a good leader, be an example, of what leadership can look like. And coaching isn't telling people what to do. I think that's what people think coaching is. I think people think coaching is somebody else telling you what to do. And that's
Hmm.
not coaching.
Yeah, I always like to think of that as when I learned it, because I also was that way. Like, okay, what's a coach? How is it different from therapy? How is it different from consulting? And so I like to, when people are like giving you a strategy and do this, I think of that as more consulting, like someone with experience and expertise in the area that you're trying to master. Like, okay, do A, B, C, D step. But you're right, coaching is totally not that.
To me, and I don't know what you think, but I think coaching is having that outside accountability partner, somebody to help you problem solve, to help you look at things outside the box, maybe give some ideas, some concepts, some different things, help you hone in on those skills levels. But really, they're just the outside resource that so many people are wanting and really craving. They just didn't realize it.
Yeah, especially I would 100% agree. And I'd also add on, I like to think of it too as like this brain outside of yours. I like to say, well, it's difficult to fix a problem with the brain that created it. So having those eyeballs that are outside of your situation, to your point, can help you see things a lot clearer.
Absolutely. So, from your years of experience, what's the most powerful lesson that you've learned about growing and sustaining a successful business as you start your coaching career?
Yeah. What I have learned is that fear is inevitable and that failure also is as well. And that if we, for me, the most powerful transition was realizing that I get to define what all of this means. Because I think that people who don't do the scary thing, people who hold themselves back, and even in times that I do that, it's always around when I'm thinking about the thing. And so one of the first things I had to do a lot of the scary things I'm doing now is to redefine what I thought success meant. I can be successful even if I haven't reached those goals, because when I do, I'm going to have more goals. I can redefine failure, that it's part of the process, it's learning, and then really detaching those things, those experiences, and those emotions that come up from that from me. So I think it's most powerful for me.
Well, and you brought up a good point. I don't know. Albert Gray it's one of my favorite quotes ever, and it's about what he calls the common denominator of success. And he says the common denominator of success is the secret of success of every person who has ever been successful lies in the fact that he or she formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do,
Mm, yes. Yeah,
right?
like moving, that makes me think of what the difference is. And for me, what comes up is the ability to feel negative emotions and take the action anyway. I see that in my coaching all the time because that's what holds people back.
Absolutely. And so let's kind of dive into emotions. I think you're touching on something really big here. I see the same thing too, right? Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of doing something unknown.
Hmm.
It really holds people back. It's almost like that whole analysis of paralysis, right?
Right.
And it causes procrastination and people just not moving forward and just feeling stuck. with your clients, what are some of the things that you're working on with them, to kind of overcome some of that?
Yeah. So a big part of that, I use a tool called the model, and it's Brooke Castillo put this together. But the things behind it, it's in psychology. It's been around forever, but it really just shows us that we have, everything is neutral in the world. The things we do, the goals we have is just a neutral thing. Maybe something scary that we need to do, it's just a neutral thing. And then we have our thoughts on that, and those thoughts are either positive or negative, and that creates an emotion in us. And so what I notice with my clients are usually something they're wanting to create, they haven't yet, or they've been trying and failing and quitting and all these things. And it always boils down to the moment it's time to take the action. Because interesting enough, when you ask someone, like, people can tell you what it's going to take to create what they want, or at least they have some kind of idea, right? And well, when it's time to take that action, there is an emotion that they feel. It might be anxiety, it might be someone's nervous, fear, to your point. People may be afraid of rejection. There's all kinds of different emotions that happen. And so what our brain likes to do, so we have two different types of our, brain, the part that's like, let's go, we want these goals and go for it. And the other part that everyone has also that's like, no, let's stay comfortable. Let's stay in the cave. Let's not do anything uncomfortable. Let's like not do anything that's going to cause any kind of pain, and emotional pain as well. That's going to come in and like, oh no, we're feeling this negative emotion. Let's like go the other way and let's give up. So this is where people like, they start and stop. When coaching, you may have heard the term buffering. So we're over scrolling, we're overeating, we're shopping, we're doing all the things other than the uncomfortable task. And so I'm always helping my clients to get to the bottom of the root of what's causing them to stop, to not go for the thing. And it's always centered around the things that we've talked about, like how do they define failure? How do they define success? What do they make success and failure mean about them? Their ability to feel embarrassed, rejected, scared, anxious, nervous. Like, we don't want to feel those feelings. And so to that point of Albert Gray's quote, it just makes me think about those who are open and willing to feel those things are going to naturally do more.
Absolutely. And there's another thing that we always talk about at Southwestern Consulting, right, is action cures fear. So if you just take the first step, right? If we just take that first step, it's almost like a domino effect. You just keep doing. And that once you got the momentum, now we're talking, now we're hitting goals, now we're overcoming fear. And the motions, I think, typically switches from a negative experience to a more positive experience.
I would have to agree too. And then you start to, I was thinking of, you start to train your brain, you start to build evidence to your brain that, oh, I can do this. Oh, it wasn't as hard as I thought. And I think sometimes what could shift people is, it's interesting. It's a very small shift, but it can be really powerful for people when they think about, what if I just made the fear not a problem, right? And we just like, oh, this is a scary thing. And like, that's totally fine. Then we can like, it's because the reason why people are like holding back is because, oh, that's a problem. I shouldn't feel that. Never mind. It's like, oh no, this is part of the process and it's not a problem.
Absolutely. I think people are also afraid of no. People do not want to be afraid of, they don't want to be hear no. And so I'm just thinking about, clients and, even myself at, in the past where I did not want to I didn't want to prospect. I didn't want to make the phone calls, or some people are scared of asking for referrals. The scary things to grow your business. I don't care if you're not a sales position, if you're selling a service or a product, you're still in sales. You still have to have those conversations of somebody working with you, typically.
Yeah. I laugh because, oh, that's totally was me and still can be me. Like, what does this no mean about me? And what do I make it mean about my business? And, I get consults and some of them are no. And that's always going to be the case. And so that was my first work, was like, oh, I thought that I was going to start this and everyone was going to come running and they all were going to love me and I was going to close everybody. And it's like, no, it's part of the game. So having to redefine, like, that doesn't mean that my business won't grow, that I'm not great at what I do. You know what I mean? So that's why I laugh, because I totally hit on a personal thing.
Right. Well, and I was just thinking yesterday, I was making some calls. I got some referrals from a really good friend of mine. Shout out to Miss Brittany. And so as I was calling these, I booked 2 workshops from a couple and I called somebody else and they said no. And I'm thinking, okay, great. I go, thank you for telling me no. He goes, what? I go, thank you for telling me no. I go, no's are great and yeses are great. And so thank
Mm-hmm.
you for just telling me no. I really think I took this leader back. I don't think he's ever had a salesperson that said, thank you for telling me no.
Yeah, but it is to your point. That's great, right? Because now you can move on. Like there is no back and forth. Like yeah,
That's right. And it's attached to the emotions. Because how many times has somebody heard that and they kept giving excuses why they didn't want your service, and you just kept hearing that maybe or that no. How many people would just stop?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So you're right. Our emotions are completely attached. And it could be like a leader, right? There's certain things that some leaders don't want to do.
yeah,
Having one-on-ones with their team. A lot of leaders don't want to have those PCs, those personal conferences and one-on-ones, but they know they need to do it, but they're just not. So really, how is that culture of that team or that company? Because you're not having those deep dive conversations with your team.
yeah. And I find that to be true too. Most people, many people, I should say, like they prefer the group setting because you don't have that one-to-one connection, especially if you're talking about something very difficult. And I think that's what's so beautiful about coaches is because
Yeah.
we are trained to like deep dive, go in there. We're going to get to the root of the thing, the things that people are oftentimes scared to talk about. It's like, let's put it out on the table and go.
Yeah. And I love working with veterans. So right now in my career, I'm working with a lot of veteran top producers, leaders in companies. And I love them when I ask a question and there's just a long pause and they're looking at me because typically we're on teams and they're like, I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that before, or that's a great question. Can I think about it for a second? Right. And there's just that comfortable silence of just letting them, sometimes not comfortable silence because they're like, oh my gosh, I have no clue. Right. It's that bringing that awareness, attaching those emotions to help them overcome the next hurdle.
Yeah, and to your point of the pause, I think that I don't know if you experience this with we do a similar coaching but very different. But I find that no matter what coaching people do, that pause is so beautiful that allows your client to really tap into what is happening for them. What is this emotion? Where is it in my body? Why is it coming up for me? And it was one of the most difficult things I had to learn when I got into coaching because honestly, when I decided I was going to be a coach, a part of that was like, I can help people change their lives and I'm going to hop on this call and tell you all the things that you need to do. And I very quickly through training was like, oh, no, this is not that at all. Like,
So many new coaches, and I've been there, where when we're new, we don't mean to, but we're training instead of coaching our
yes.
clients,
Yep.
right? So having that veteran expert coach, man, it's a world changer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So business is never smooth sailing. What is one of the biggest challenges that you faced, Regina, and how'd you overcome it?
Yeah. So one of my coaches calls it low value cycles. That is something that most challenging thing for me. And this is when you get in your head, right? I get in my head about what I'm not capable of, what's not possible. Why am I doing this anyway? I actually posted a reel this morning, but it literally happened this morning. Like I woke up and my daughter missed the bus. So she's like, can you take me to school? I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm like getting ready. And a thought just came was like, why are you doing this? Like you could just go back to being a nurse. Like nobody wants any of this. Like you are wasting your time. That literal thought came to me. And so before I can catch it a lot better now, and sometimes it still sneaks up on me. And this is what we call low value cycle, where then I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't know what I'm doing anyway. I don't have what it takes. And then I sulk the rest of the day. And then I cancel interviews like this and other ones that I have later and all these things that I find maybe kind of nerve wracking and I'm nervous about it and really get in my own way. So that's the most difficult thing for me. And I find with anyone doing anything scary is ourselves. It's never the people outside of us. It's never the audience that we think we're talking to or the business we want to create. It's our brains and what we allow our brains to tell us, but also what we listen to. And so how I've dealt with that is first awareness. I think that's one of the most important things that we can have as people, whether it's business, personal, or what have you. It's really being aware of what we're experiencing, noticing like, oh, that's just something my brain's offering me. It's not actually true unless I decide that it is. And then really creating space for that. So this morning, I think it was a lot of just anxiety around, these podcast interviews. I got one later. I'm going to be live on Facebook and my brain's like, what do you just got to perform like this kind of thing. So just holding space for that. Like,
Absolutely.
I know that I'm afraid, and then allowing that, but then also going into intentional thought creation. And another one of my coaches, Stacey Bateman, coined that, where it's like, what do I want to believe right now on purpose, right? And then allowing that to take over for me.
So good. So how do you approach difficult decisions and problem solving in your business?
Yeah. So I have a couple of different things I do. One, I think oftentimes we know what we want to do. It just feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm always checking in like,
I would agree.
Yeah. Do I know the answer to this already? Because I can just like not waste my time and move on. And so I make the decision, feel the discomfort, move on. Another though, if it's like I really am unsure, like for example, this retreat that I'm going to next week, it was rather expensive for me. And I had gone to it in March, but it really was amazing. And I really wanted to go again. And I'm like, and it's a business decision. Like a lot of people do it for luxury and all that. But for me, I'm like, I'm going to get coached. I'm like 18 hours of coaching. Let's go, all that. And what I did in that instance and what I do with a lot of difficult decisions is really clear my mind and get down to the reasons I would make the choice, choice A, or why I would make choice B. And even further, what emotions would drive that. And so what I found with this retreat was if I didn't go, the emotions that drove that decision was guilt, shame, even uncertainty. Like, is it going to work? I shouldn't leave my kids that long. Like all these different things that were coming. Like those were the emotions that would drive me not going. But when I thought about why would I choose to go? Why would I choose to invest in myself and do this work for me? It was all around like, I know I'm going to get what I came for. I know that I can make this happen. I know that I'm going to, she's going to help me, all these different things. So those emotions were empowerment, pride, I was really decided, disciplined. And so I always think of what emotions do I want driving my decision. I never want to make an emotion because I'm afraid, a decision because I'm afraid, or step back on something because I'm unsure. Like I want it to be like, no, I have this in the bag. So that's one, those are two ways that I do that's been very helpful for me to making decisions.
No, I love that. Are there any other frameworks or tips that help guide you in that?
In the decision making?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, you can actually do this. I think I actually did a live showing people how to do this, but you would have like decision A, write it on the top of a piece of paper, decision B, and then what are all your reasons? So we know the pros and cons, like we know how to do that, but I love this way better because usually the pros outweigh the cons anyway. So decision A, these are all the reasons I would make those. Like all of the reasons, doesn't matter. Decision B, all the reasons I would make those. And when you do that, typically there are many that you can cross off. Like those aren't really reasons I would make that decision. You can cross them off. And usually when you do that, you get down to just a few that you can say, it usually speaks to you. Like this one's more powerful. This is what I want to go with. And then if that doesn't work, look at the emotion behind that. And I think people should decide ahead of time, what emotions do you want to drive your decisions in your business?
So good. We all have tough days. How do you stay motivated and just keep pushing forward in crazy, difficult times, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur? How do you stay motivated?
Yeah. One, listening to things like this. I'm so grateful that you have this platform, especially for those of us in business and doing scary things, to hear and bounce ideas off people. I think it helps you to feel that you're not alone. Other people are also experiencing this. To that point, I also like to look at or listen to biographies and autobiographies, because usually very successful people, they didn't have an easy go. That you're able to see like, oh, they went through all these things. So again, it helps you to normalize the experience, especially for me. My husband's an entrepreneur. He always has been, but that's a dynamic too, right? Like trying to talk to your partner about things. Like we need something outside of that. But also I don't have anyone in my family that's an entrepreneur. So I don't have people in my close circle and they just don't get it. I'm talking to them about certain experiences like, oh, just go get a job. Yeah, you're a nurse. Like just go, you know what I mean? That's their answer.
Right.
And so surrounding myself with that, I also ensure I have the support. As I said before, I have a few coaches that are like, when I need something, hey, can you help me out? I have a community also. And I'd also think there's several quotes that I try to hold on to. And one, it's lost on me where I got it from, but nothing has gone wrong when things have gone wrong it's really been helpful for me because it helps me to see like I'm going through it right now. This is a negative experience, whatever, but this is just part of the plan. It's not a problem. And we can get our brain shifted to that. We can hold space for what we're really experiencing instead of going into like fight or flight or freeze and trying to like fix
Right.
it and solve for it. And then I disconnect. Like I try to do a really good job of deciding here are my hours. And then when it's time to shut down, it's time to shut down. Like I know as entrepreneurs, we want to go, 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 especially if you love it. But I'm like, okay, I'm done. So I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to be with my family, like really disconnecting from it.
That's a great point. So when I first started my career here at Southwestern, that was me. I was all into work, like 10, 12 hours days. And then I met my husband, Michael. Well, then those 10, 12-hour days, they kind of turned, to maybe 9, 10-hour days. And then I had my son, Thad, and now he's in school. And it's, depending on the day, it's a shorter day by a couple hours, right? But man, I am so laser beam focused, from 8 to 3 or 8 to 4 that I think I get more done because I have to be so focused, right?
Yes, that's so good. Yeah, you over the years you probably have also cultivated that where your brain's not all our brain can take up so much energy and space.
That's
We're
right.
like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna go for it. So yeah, to your point, 100%.
No, I love that. And that was such a good quote too. I don't think I've ever heard that one. That's
Yeah, I
pretty,
don't even know if it's a quote. I've heard it, so I'm sure I didn't make it
you know,
up.
uh, quote unknown, right? Like
Right.
somebody said it somewhere, so we're going to give somebody kudos, whoever that may be. Uh,
Yeah.
our business is ever changing, and when I started with Southwestern, almost, I'm going on my 13th year here in December. It was very interesting. People here in the Midwest did not really know what coaching was, or they had a negative outlook on what coaching was. People from the East Coast, West Coast, they were like all about it in the South because they knew what coaching was. They've all been coaching for decades, right? Um, what are some of the strategies that you're using to keep yourself and your business relevant as things change, especially in the Midwest? Now that I think coaching's, much more common, people are more open-minded to it. What are some of the things that you're, using to keep yourself relevant and just up with how our industry changes so often?
Yeah, very good question. For me, the first thing came to mind is like eyes on paper. And the reason why I want to say that is because there are some like my coaches, right? And like people I know in the industry, so freaking successful, right? That levels I haven't reached yet. And if I am comparing myself, then I go into the space of beating myself up and I need to look like this or like that. And then it really just sends to the cycle of like not doing anything or not really creating value in the world. So I really try to focus on that and I think anyone listening, know you can have a million coaches. Like I think every person could literally be a coach and we all bring something valuable to the table. And so I
Mhm.
remind myself that it doesn't matter if I'm saying the same thing. No one can say it like me. No one can connect with my audience like I can. And so it helps me to stay in that leadership role and helps me to stay in like what it is I'm wanting to create and not get into the comparison. I also, to that point, try to check myself and I don't use other people's success against me. I use it as like, oh, if they did it, I can totally do it too. Right. My coaches are eight figure earners, right? And like it's like, oh, if they're no different from me. Like if they're doing this, I can as well. So not using things that I've not experienced yet against me and my progress. And then I really make myself get into a space of serving. It's a different energy. When we're like in get energy and what can I get from this? And I need to make a sale. We show up differently than when we are serving. And so I think of creative ways to do that in all of my platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. That is literally what it's for. How can I serve someone today to shift one thing about them and what they're doing? And when I show up in that energy at networking events, like really just being curious with people and finding ways to serve in the best way I know how, people are automatically attracted to that. And so I don't have to like get into this, oh my God, I got to make a sale and I got to bring people in. Like it automatically happens when I'm showing up and serving.
Absolutely. No, I love that. We always talk about, you got to be a servant seller, right? Selling is a service. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be forcing people to buy your service or product,
Yeah.
because when you go in with that, you end up having commission breath, and
Mm.
everybody can smell commission breath. We've
I
all been
haven't heard that.
we've all been sold something that somebody had commission breath and people just kind of walk away. So I
Mm.
always say, if you come from a heart of service, it's hard to be nervous, right?
Oh, I love that.
So one of my colleagues, Steve Reiner, always says it's hard to be nervous when your focus is on service.
Yeah.
So
I love that. And I also add too, when people are thinking of tangible things,
yes,
if I were to sit, and I've done this before, so I have like my things down, right? But that, like you said, ever changing, things might change. But I always take myself to like, who am I when I'm, to your point, serving? And who am I when I'm giving the best of me? And what ways, like, what do my people need to know? And how can I get that to them? And so for me, I
I love
do monthly free workshops. I'm throwing up fun challenges, like different things to get people excited, because you, like you said, most people, and still I run into people like, oh, you're a coach. Okay, I've heard of that. What does that mean? And it's like, how can I get people excited to believe like, whoa, I think I might
right.
need a little bit of that. So
No, I love that. If you had to boil it down, what are the top three pieces of advice you'd give anybody looking for them to grow their business or their leadership skills?
Yes. I would say, first of all, get a mentor slash coach, someone who has walked the walk already. If possible, unless you have someone who could do both, one for your personal life and one for business as well. I would say to really spend time first thing in the morning to decide what you want to believe about yourself and really keep that top of mind throughout your day. And I'd say to really commit to having fun, because, we're on this journey 99% of the time. And when you reach that destination, that's just 1%. And many of us, especially us very, go getters, high achievers,
Yeah,
we are very much focused on the goal. We forget to have fun, and then we reach the goal, and then it's more goals. And so we just have a life of not having a good time.
great advice. I love that. Okay. I always end on a fun question that I always ask everybody. What is a funny story that you would love to share with us about you growing up, that just kind of resonates, who you are as a phenomenal woman, Regina?
Yeah. I don't know if this resonates with who I am as a phenomenal woman, but I'll share a Halloween story, since Halloween was just yesterday.
Yes.
And so I have, and actually I was reminded of this because my husband just took our 4 and 7 year old to this same place, the Children's Museum. They have like the Halloween walkthrough thing. And it made me think about that. When I was young, we would go. And so I remember this one particular year, we went to the one that was scary. So it was like really dark in there. And we're like walking, I think it was about 7 or so. And all I remember, like, it was dark, and I just remember looking down, and there was something that was moving. And to this day, I'm very afraid of like bugs and all that. It's funny when I say I camp and all that, I've like made myself get comfortable with the outside, because I'm like, we
Okay.
don't do well. And so I looked down, I just freaked because it was moving, and I'm starting to run around this whole place. Of course, my mom is embarrassed. Everyone is like, what the hell is going on? So they had to like turn the lights on, stop the whole show, and help me. And what we discovered was it was just like the drawstring neon hanging from my jacket. I don't think that I was old enough to be embarrassed. My mom surely was. I was more relieved, but like thinking back, I'm like, wow, I really feel sorry for her.
That is fun. And Children's Museum here in Indianapolis is just a phenomenal place anyways. Kudos, shout out to the Indianapolis Children's Museum.
Yes, they actually have, with Taylor Swift being here this weekend. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen, the dinosaur has like Tay Tay bracelets. I'm like, come on.
It's just, the Indianapolis has gone Tay crazy with her coming in town this weekend. I am staying far away from downtown this
You're
weekend.
smart. You're smart.
I'm not heading down. Um, so how, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I always love to connect with folks on social. I'm on Facebook at Regina Sloan Coaching. I am on Instagram at Your Mindset Nurse, spelled exactly how it sounds. I'm on LinkedIn at Regina Sloan.
Perfect. I love that. Well, Regina, thank you so much for hopping on with Talk with Coach. I appreciate you. And I'm excited that we're becoming fast referral partners here in Indianapolis. And and all the fun stuff that is yet to come. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and providing this platform for us. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, this wraps up another insightful episode of Talk with Coach. A huge thank you to Regina for sharing such valuable knowledge and lessons from her incredible journey. If today's episode resonates with you, or you have a burning question or topic you like for us to discuss in the future, we'd love to hear from you. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Until next time, remember every step forward as a part of your success story. Keep striving for greatness, keep learning, and don't forget, your journey is just beginning. Make it a blessed day, everybody.